Security and intelligence agencies tasked on better operational strategies to effectively secure the country.
Nigerian students in exit classes return to school after 6 months.
We did not spend 13 billion naira on school feeding program, Minister of Humanitarian Affairs clarifies.
On a Good Morning Nigeria today, our focus is on partial school resumption in Nigeria.
Now, last week, managers of Nigeria's education sector unanimously agreed to reopen schools in the country after more than 5 months of closure.
The decision taken in the midst of the current global health emergency is in two phases. The first reopening, which began on the 4th of August, is for exiting classes such as JSS3 and SS3.
Now, a document which should serve as a guide for schools as they reopen was released by the Federal Ministry of Education. It focuses on attendance, social distancing, hygiene, cleaning, and non-pharmaceutical interventions. Now, the guidelines will also help strengthen programs that facilitate the recovery of learning gaps already identified during the pandemic.
Well, mixed reactions trail the decision to reopen schools in the country, which many expressing concerns over possible new infections among students. Some concerned persons insist health should be given priority over economic gains. And among these is the Nigerian Medical Association. Its members insist that losing an academic year is better than being exposed to COVID-19.
Well, they also draw attention to the vulnerability of children under 10 who may not understand how to wear face masks, avoid touching surfaces, as well as their faces with dirty hands.
And there are also concerns about financial capacity of some schools to fund the requirements, as well as the inability of some members or some others to keep to the health advisory on COVID-19.
Others are, however, of the opinion that the recently released guidelines are enough to aid the resumption process and protect students as well as the school community. But despite this positive outlook, some issues before the schools as they reopen partially in Nigeria include funds for compulsory tests, regular water supply for hand washing, sanitizers, soap, and spaces for emergency treatment of persons who take ill.
Yes, Kingsley, and some parents are not quite comfortable with the ability of some schools to keep large groups of children in check, insisting that this reopening may be premature. They cite the recent occurrence in Israeli schools where the government had to impose a stringent lockdown to contain an outbreak resulting from the reopening of schools.
Well, these issues inform the choice of today's conversation on Good Morning Nigeria. And Kirian, I think we should also emphasize the point that it is a partial reopening of schools that we are seeing just now for pupils who are in the exit classes, JSS3 and SS3. The entire school system is not just reopening yet. My name is Kingsley Osadolo, and I welcome you to today's edition of the program, reaching you as always live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're broadcasting from our Abuja headquarters studios.
And I'm Kirian Umayo. We thank you. Thank you also for being part of the program this morning. And in a moment, we shall bring you the morning news and also serve you other segments in the course of the program today. Musbao Dan Wahab is here for the morning news. Good morning and welcome, Musbao.
Good morning, Kirian and Kingsley. Here's the morning news. President Muhammad Buhari is tasking the nation's armed forces and other security and intelligence agencies to rejig the operational strategies in the fight against crime and criminality to effectively secure Nigeria for a prosperous future. Addressing an extraordinary meeting of the National Security Council, the president maintains that Nigerians deserve a much more peaceful environment for meaningful, purposeful, and productive living.
Not conceal his anger about the declining security situation and directed that we must rejig our strategy, that is both in terms of operation and intelligence, immediate re-engineering of the entire security apparatus to prevent further catastrophe.
And that was the National Security Advisor speaking. Schools across the Federal Capital Territory resumed this Tuesday for exit classes. Minister of State for Education, Chukwuemeka Nwajuba, visited some federal government colleges in Abuja for on-the-spot assessments to ascertain preparedness for schools for the partial reopening.
Yesterday we received report from the federal principal at QC. Everybody has properly distanced the classes.
I engage in online classes. I also read my books and extra lessons.
This patient is very satisfactory.
Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Omar Farouk, says her ministry did not spend 13 billion naira on school feeding. The minister gave a clarification and a statement released on fake news circulating around the sum purportedly spent daily on the provision of take-home rations on the modified homegrown school feeding program. Information and Culture Minister Ali Mohammed has unveiled the reviewed Nigeria Broadcasting Code in Lagos State. The reviewed code, which contains antitrust provision aimed at boosting local content and encouraging the growth of the local industry, among other requirements.
Particular provision grants the country the opportunity to regulate negative foreign brokers that harm the country. Such harms could be in the areas of security, protection for minors, protection of human dignity, economic fraud, and privacy.
On COVID-19 update, 304 new cases of coronavirus infections have been confirmed in Nigeria. That's from the figure the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, announced late last night. The FCT leads the daily chart with 90 cases, followed by Lagos with 59 cases. Ondo has 9, Taraba 18, Rivers 17, Borno 15, Adamawa 12, and Oyo 11. Other states on the chart are Delta with 9 cases, Edo 6, while Bauchi, Kwara, Ogun, and Osun have 4 new cases each. Bayelsa, Plateau, and Niger have 3 new cases of the virus. Nasarawa has 2, while Kano has just a new case. 44,433 cases have so far been confirmed, with 31,851 patients treated and discharged. 910 people have died from the virus in Nigeria. That's the morning news. The program continues with Kingsley and Kirian after this break. Good morning.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Next is Newspaper Review.
Bayo Chebe is not going to be with us here today for this particular review, so Kingsley and I will try and do justice to this review. Kingsley, we begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. NIPOST FIRS feud over stamp duty deepens. It's on page 19. WAEC releases 2020 WAS timetable. That's a West African Senior School Certificate Examination. Now, NBC raises hate speech fine to 5 million naira. It's on page 5. Now, news tightens around service chiefs with 4 riders as Buhari moves to overhaul security apparatus, says Nigerians have lost confidence in the system. They should just go, according to experts. The citizens want action, not speeches. That's CSOs. That's on page 4. That's where you get the details of those stories. Now, at the bottom of the Daily Trust, we'll have some stories there. But before that, the picture story is that of, what is likely going to be the new normal with respect to having students in classes in Nigeria beginning from the 4th of this month. And that's what you can see there. There's clearly well spaced out, seating arrangement there. And that's the final year students in class at the Federal Government Senior Secondary School, we say Zone 3 here in Abuja. Now below that we have a house for women widowed by bandits struggled for survival. It's on page 28. Afeni federal leader, First Army laid to rest. It's on page 5. 2023, PDP's focus is winning, not zoning, according to Governor Wike of Rivers State. The story is on page 30. All right.
All right, we'll take a look at the window page of the Punch newspaper. Above the name flag says, NAPA kicks as Bristol sacks 100 pilots and engineers. NAPA stands for National Association of Airline Pilots and Engineers. And they say that they are kicking over the sack of 100 pilots and engineers at Bristol helicopters. Details can be found on page 27. Petrol, ex-depot price rises by 6 naira, consumers to pay more, that's page 27. On page 9, we've submitted WASC timetable to federal government, says WAEC. Stamp duty, that's the kicker. Outrage on Twitter as FRS slams NIPO's chairman. Details of that story on page 32. Lead story comes with a kicker. Hate speech, NBA and activists lampoon federal government for raising fine to 5 million naira. Address senseless killings, economic hardship, sons, lawyers' body, and others tell government. That's the write-up. And the photographs on the front page there are also from the News Agency of Nigeria and one of their correspondents, that's the Punch, showing students of the government secondary school in Wuse Zone 3, as well as in Tudunwada, as they resumed for exit classes yesterday, Tuesday. $500,000 bribe. You have case to answer. Appeal court test Lawan. Details can be found on page 20. Yari initiated suit that sacked Zamfara APC. That's according to Marafa. That's on page 12. Lebanon. Federal government rescues 30 Nigerians. 150 more victims avert evacuation. Sokoto senator condemns talks with insurgents and bandits. That's on page 8. Flooding. Federal Capital Territory demolishes 102 houses in Gwagwalada. Details on page 8. And NUC believes universities will reopen soon. Laments ASU strike. Details on page 8 as well. So, Kieran, well, those are the headlines. What you see on the front page of the Punch, just an earpiece there beside the nameplate. It shows you in numbers the coronavirus update in Nigeria. We have confirmed cases over 44,000 and discharged cases also over 31,000. Unfortunately, 910 persons have died. But globally, over 18.6 million persons have been infected and over 702,000 persons have died. But, Kieran, the numbers are coming down.
Yes, in Nigeria.
Daily figures reported by NCDC.
It is a remarkable development, in Nigeria, because some other Western nations, I'm sure, will be surprised at the turn of events, in Nigeria with respect to coronavirus in terms of numbers that we have. We have over 44,000 cases and about 31 discharged. So that means that the active cases are no longer, as much as should be expected. So of course the fight is on, and the medical personnel in Nigeria are actually, up to the task, and doing something very reasonable to ensure that Nigeria comes out of this pandemic gradually, slowly but steadily, as we move on. Right?
Kieran, while we're looking at the global numbers for Nigeria, the Federal Capital Territory, of course, has now leapfrogged Lagos as the location that reports the highest daily number of cases. That was released last night. FCT had 90 cases. Lagos had 59. And I think this is the second consecutive day or so in a row that the FCT is leapfrogging the federal capital. Sorry, the FCT is leapfrogging the Lagos. Yeah, and so Lagos is the numbers are coming down. So exactly what is happening in the FCT that we continue to see this daily spike in numbers.
Now, you know, we've discussed this before on this platform. That is Nigerians living in the FCT, most of them are not adhering to the protocol. That is very certain, especially if you go to the higher population density areas. You know, you'll be shocked at what you see. People don't wear face masks, which is, of course, one of the simplest way of protecting yourself. You know, that and of course, to even acquire the face mask is very easy. It's cheap. You know, and of course, we have even devised other means of you know, making those face masks so that they're not expensive. You know, but then the point is to have the responsibility to wear them at every given point, especially when you're in the marketplace or where people are converging. That is what is lacking in the FCT. If you go to, you know, Koboa area, Gwagwalada, you know, all those suburbs, you know, of the FCT, you discover that highly is not really respected. You know, the protocol is not really respected. That's not a good story.
Yeah, that's a fine point. Part of what probably we should expect. Today is Wednesday, and going to by the schedule of the opening of markets are supposed to open today in the FCT. Now you will find that in the Amak area, the very well-known markets in the city, Garki Market, which is nearby, Wuse Market and Otaku Market, we don't find health inspectors who go to such locations to insist on either both the traders and the buyers or patrons putting on their face mask. People are just milling around and going about as though nothing were happening.
It must even be health officials. What about the people managing the market, even the market association?
That's right.
They should have such a take such responsibility. You know, because don't enter the market unless you have face mask. That's it. At the gate. If you don't have face mask, you go back.
That's right.
All right. There are other issues we read. Constantly, NIPO's FIRS field over stamp duty deepened. So I don't know what that matter is all about. You know, the stamp duties. Who gets the money? Because that's what I'm beginning to understand about it.
Stamp duty. The contention has been between NIPOs. You know the stamp, the normal postage stamps that we used to get, we used to buy. The contention has been between NIPOs and FRS as to who is the legitimate collector of stamp duties, and therefore ultimately the monies will be remitted to the federal government's purse. But the challenge now has to do with the apparent altercation between the FRS and the chairperson of NIPOS. And I think this is a bit unseemly because almost a couple of months ago you saw what happened between the Diaspora Commission and NCC over the alleged eviction of the Diaspora Commission from their premises, some building somewhere on the outskirts of Jabi on the way to the airport. It appears that sometimes
we're like an interagency relationship.
Absolutely,
you know, interagency relationship. That's what it's like. There should be synergy between these agencies. So, you know, for instance, we're talking about stamp here. We're talking about FIRS. Yes. They may have, you know, each of them may have a right position they are claiming, so to speak, right? But then, when you talk about stamp, who produces stamp in the first place?
Oh, of course, it's NIPOS.
Exactly. So, I mean, you should sit down, discuss the issues around it, and of course, take a decision, not to having altercations in public and making us believe that agencies are not synergizing properly, as if we're in a different, they're under different administrations. These are agencies under the federal government that should have the knowledge of, you know, having a better understanding about their operational responsibilities, you know, as existing agencies.
And when they are having conflicts of this nature, where is the clearinghouse to which they can seek recourse?
Yeah, exactly.
So that it's not a public matter. In this case, it's the Twitter war that they have had. You know, and all kinds of expletives were said to have been used in describing themselves. I think that is quite unseemly, and the higher authorities ordinarily should step in. They are appointees of government, and of course they have ways of dealing with this. There's the ex-depot price of petrol that has risen, which means that consumers will have to pay more. There's just a slight increase at the pump price of petrol. They will have to, of course, you know, instances of this nature, petrol dealers are very smart and quick to adjust their pump prices. So you go there, you might see a new change, and then that's the new order on account of the fact that there is no more subsidy.
All right. And there.
There's a story here. This case has been lingering for a long time. You recall, it's the 500,000 naira bribe case. You have case to answer. Appeal court test Lawan. Lawan was a member of the House of Representatives from Kano. And there was the allegation over, of course, the fuel subsidy scam, alleged fuel subsidy scam, and the investigation that took place during President Goodluck Jonathan's time. One, of course, of the agencies alleged to have been involved was said to have, of course, offered bribe as a way of setting up, having contacted the security agencies. And I'm sure Nigerians will remember this case very well. He was alleged to have put the money in his cap and asking TJ to come and give him the money. So Appeal Court now says he has a case to answer. It's lingered for a very long time. We hope that the matter is dealt with expeditiously.
It's going to be concluded very soon. It's been there for a while now. And that's what we talk about, Kingsley, when we talk about, justice delayed, justice denied.
Justice denied, that's right.
News tightens around service chiefs. And this one has been on for a while now, since banditry and other criminal activities heightened in the last couple of weeks. But I think that by now, the service chiefs have gotten the message, coming from not just the presidency, but from Nigerians and experts as well. So that's what Daily Trust is trying to, put here, news titans around service chiefs, and then as Buhari moves to overhaul security apparatus.
Well, as you said, it's a matter that has been lingering for a while, and the daily reports of insecurity and violence and loss of lives around the country, those daily reports are unsavory, and this is a time to actually overhaul. It's not just the operational strategies, but the strategic and tactical deployment that is required. I'm not a military expert, I'm not a security expert, but of course we all see the consequences of what is played out in all parts of the country, in the north central, in the northeast, in the northwest, in the southeast, south, and southwest. Things just cannot go on this way. And we think that the president has, of course, been tolerant enough. Is, of course, giving enough cooperation and support to his men and officers.
And these men are professionals. They should know better, because for a nation to continue to go through all those kind of criminal activities in the country, we can't take that for a very long time, because traveling across the nation now is very dangerous. If anybody is making a trip to any part of the country by land, of course, you have to just pray that nothing happens, because invariably something could happen. That's just exactly what it is. And for that to continue in a nation like Nigeria, of course, that means that security is not guaranteed. We are looking forward to better security arrangement. And of course, the service chiefs have already promised that they're going to, scale up their operational activities to ensure that, of course, they can stem the tide of criminal activities in all parts of the country.
All right, Kieran, virtually those are the stories that we have on the front page. But there was a story yesterday. You and I were not on set yesterday, but we were pressed for time. It is that we have had thumbs up and also thumbs down for what is playing out. In Rivers State, the governor decided to give judges serving in the state 41 SUVs. Various accounts, one said the Range Rover, another said Discovery. And the question has arisen, why would you give such luxury vehicles, as it were, to judges? Could you get, other SUVs, rugged SUVs that are not as costly as those SUVs are? Because the cost of even trying to secure yourself in an expensive SUV oftentimes can outweigh the general cost of relieving the transportation challenges of the officers.
The idea of buying and distributing expensive cars in Nigeria, it didn't start today. It didn't start today. And many Nigerians are asking questions as to what is the need for all that. We just a few months ago, we're talking about the SUVs for members of National Assembly. In a situation where we have COVID-19, a situation where we have, the economy has even dropped drastically, and we're trying to manage ourselves out of it and to maintain stability, and we're buying vehicles and distributing to certain individuals. I don't know. Fine, if that's the way government functions, fine with me, but I know that Nigerians are not are grudging. They are grudging. Nigerians are not happy about this situation. A situation where you are sharing Range Rover. Do you know the cost of Range Rover?
That's right. And in nearby Akwa Ibom State, look at the differences. Akwa Ibom State has already floated an airline. That airline has at least 2 or 3 aircraft, and they could very well have spent the money by this. In another 4 or 5 years, the vehicles that have been purchased now will depreciate in value.
Exactly.
That's it. All right, Kirian, we should, of course, we could have signed off by you, but it's not been with us this morning. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll go ahead with our item for discussion this morning.
Coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, is spreading at an alarming rate all over the globe, including Nigeria. With the number of infected persons in Nigeria increasing daily, prevention is better than cure. Coronavirus has no cure. The virus spreads from one person who affects 2 persons, and by the time the affected person is isolated, the 2 persons have affected 4, and it keeps spreading. You must take preventive measures to save yourself and that of the people around you. Always wash your hands with soap and water. Put distance between yourself and others. Whenever you cough or sneeze, cover your mouth. Clean and disinfect surfaces. Stay at home if you're sick and contact the proper authorities. Together, we can cut down the spread of the coronavirus. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest TV network.
Disinfect and protect your home with Jik. Jik kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs. Disinfect floors, kitchen and bathroom surfaces, and wash white cloths, towels, and dishcloths with Jik bleach. Just Jik it. Disinfect and protect your home with Jik. Jik kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs. Disinfect floors, kitchen and bathroom surfaces, and wash white cloths, towels, and dishcloths with Jik bleach. Just Jik it.
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
And you're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're glad to have you with us up to this moment. Our conversation this morning is on the reopening, or we call it partial reopening of schools in Nigeria. And before we begin the conversation, here is a report packaged by correspondent Aisha Ubali.
Many schools around the world are faced with the difficult challenge of reopening safely, even though this is being done in different phases. Though the issue of school resumption has been a matter of contention, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 believes that allowing examination classes resume is not out of place. Some countries like Israel, South Africa, Spain, among others, had earlier asked schools to resume. But as the number of cases of infected students began to increase, cause for worry and calls that COVID-19 measures in schools should be revisited. In Nigeria, the Ministry of Education gave the green light for schools to reopen on the 4th of August, releasing a set of guidelines to aid the process. As this directive is being carried out, many issues are also being raised. One of such is the need to ensure that schools have safety measures in place against COVID-19, such as hand-washing facilities. Observers say is imperative, as well as the issue of testing for students and staff. Parents and other concerned persons in Nigeria have expressed some concerns about the reopening, insisting that attention must be given to the protocols to avert any outbreak among the school community. Now, How safe will pupils be as schools resume for final year pupils across the country? What safety measures are in place to safeguard pupils in schools? These are questions begging for answers.
Well, joining us in the studio now is the chairman of the FCT Schools Reopening Committee, Fatima Abdulrahman. Fatima Abdulrahman, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me this morning.
Also here with us in the studios is the principal, Pace Setters College, Guzape, here in Abuja, Amechi Osuji. Pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you for having me this morning.
And Matthias Okoje is our guest also this morning. He's a parent. And via Skype from Lagos is a regular face on the program, public affairs analyst Jide Ojo. Jide, good morning and welcome.
Thanks for having me. Good morning, Chief.
All right, Kieran, let's begin the conversation with the chairperson of the FCT Schools Reopening Committee. Tell us, what is the Federal Capital Territory doing with regard to the partial reopening of schools that have been closed for 5 months effectively now?
Thank you very much. The FCT has been proactive on the issue of reopening of schools. The committee was set up about 6 weeks ago, and I was able to head the committee. We sat together to fashion way out on the guidelines of going through the schools and seeing that when schools reopen, both staff and students will be safe in the school environment. And as students come to school, they don't carry any ailments back home to their parents in order to avoid the spread of COVID-19. We have looked into the issue of population of schools in the Federal Capital Territory, and we came out with guidelines that if by the time the government announce the opening of schools, we are going to do it in phases. That's considering the certificate classes, that is the primary 6, the JS3 and the SS3 student. And today, as at yesterday, FCT schools have reopened, and we went around some schools yesterday to really see the level of compliance of the guidelines of COVID-19 as prescribed by the Presidential Task Force.
What did you find in terms of compliance level?
What we found in terms of compliance is the culture of maintaining standard hygiene level by regular washing of hands, using of face masks. No student is allowed into the school premises without putting on the face masks. And as they come in, there are places, strategic places in the school where hand washing devices have been put in place. As they come, they wash their hands, they sanitize, and then right from the gates, they take their temperature to really see that they are okay to come into the learning environment.
All right, madam, you visited some schools, and perhaps there might be public schools. What about the private schools? Because in today's Nigeria, we seem to now have more of private schools than public schools.
Yes.
And again, we learned about what happened, is it Ondo State, as the case may be, where some schools are paying some amount of money to be paid by each student, perhaps to get tested or something before resuming classes. I hope that is not playing out in Abuja here. So what is the situation with the private schools that we visited yesterday?
Not at all. The case of the Federal Capital Territory is different. Nobody collects anything from the student. All the materials were supplied by the FCT administration. If you go into our schools this morning, you will see students wearing the face masks provided by the government. Every student is having a hand sanitizer to him or herself in the classroom. So the issue of money being paid is not there in the Federal Capital Territory at all.
Well, Kirian, the Ogun State government has now declared that there will be no payment for testing for coronavirus by pupils who are...
That's a better
That's right,
development.
it's a lot better. But you
in
have
the
skipped...
Federal Capital Territory, there is no testing. We don't test the students. Rather, we take their temperature and we advise the parents to furnish the school with vital health information of a particular child or student in case of any ailment. So as they come in, they fill forms. If you have any peculiar ailment, you let the school know so that schools can take care of that. And aside that, we have designed a separate room, or what I will call isolation room in the school. In case any student comes and the temperature is high, we keep that child there and quickly call the parents to, with the help of the school health officer, to really take charge of that.
All right. Thank you very much, Hajia Fatima Abdurrahman. Let's bring in now Amechi Osuji, who is the principal of Pacesetters College in Guzape. Obviously, that's a private school. What is the situation in your school as we speak?
We have taken note of the requirements given by the NCDC, and we're very happy to announce that we have met these requirements, because it's very important to us that we maintain a safe environment for our children to learn. You know, we have a short period of time to take care of the existing classes, and we want to ensure that at the end of the day, our children live safe and sound, and their health is very important to us. So the first thing we did was to ensure that we have our pots, our booths where the children, when they come in, they wash their hands. It's compulsory. In fact, before you enter the school, you have to first of all wear your face masks. And like she has said, the information has been supplied about the health of every child, you know, before resumption. So we took note of that. And then when you are coming in as a child, you must first of all be checked at the gate. We have to ascertain your temperature level. It shouldn't be above 37. It shouldn't be above 38. Once that is done, we have to contact your parents. And good enough, the parents are careful. They brought in their children knowing fully well that their health is of paramount importance. So first of all, the child is checked, and then he comes in. If his temperature is below 38 degrees Celsius, he comes into a point where he washes his hands with soap and then cleans up his hands, goes to a place where the sanitizer is, sanitizes his hands. And then when you go to our classrooms, we have spaced them enough 2 meters apart, even more than 2 meters. We had to use other classes. Thankfully, other classes are not in school, so the empty classes have been used. In a class, you get 7 children alone. There's a distance between the board and the children, so that there's no contact at all between the teacher and the children being taught. So we are maintaining a very safe environment. And like has been stipulated also, we have a place, an isolation room or isolation place where the children stay, you know, in case anything happens. But we haven't had such. We just resumed yesterday, and we will not have such because all the parameters, all the requirements have been met. And social distancing is very important to us when they are in class, when they are out of class, wherever they are. The children are very conscious. We have educated them, we've trained them. We told their parents before they resume school that these are the requirements. A child must not come close to any child. Even teachers will maintain that distance. Our teachers, throughout the teaching period, in class, anywhere they are, they wear their face masks. That's to protect themselves and also protect the children we are teaching. So all these things have been met, because what the government is trying to do is to ensure that we have a safe environment at the end of the day, that after these children have written their exams, they can go back home safely. We don't want a situation where, you know, we lapse in any area. So we're on top security. We're watching. We have our monitoring team. Their major aim is to ensure that no child comes near any child. And, you know, children who are educated, who are from elite homes, they understand this. So they are really complying. Yesterday was interesting. They are complying. They have their face shield. They hardly take them off. At every 30 minutes, they wash their hands at different points. You know, that's to ensure that they are safe. And that's our goal. Our goal for opening is to ensure as the Federal Minister of Education is also concerned to ensure that we end well. That's the major thing. They write the exam safely, and we're going to have a successful end of term by God's grace.
Well, we just hope that what you have just expressed that happened yesterday can be sustained for a longer time. Well, thank you. Martha Okoje, you are a parent, and of course some of us also are. And what is playing out now, as we know it now, is a new normal. And I know many parents will not be at ease, you know, when, especially if your child is in a boarding school, for instance. You know, so it's really a matter to worry about. So how should parents, you know, take this situation? I mean, how are parents supposed to manage the situation at the moment?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think it's a collective responsibility. It starts from the home front, based on the news we hear every day and all over the world. I think the parents, the orientation is imparted on the children from home, that social distances won't be maintained when they go out, not just in school, but it's peculiar to school now in the sense that the exit classes, they are resuming. So there is further emphasis on the orientation they have been had before, especially now that the fact that only the exit classes are resuming makes things even easier, in the sense that initial fear that when they crowd, the collectivity of the school resume, become crowded, that one is minimized. And as parents, in my personal perspective, my children who are in exit classes, they left with hand sanitizer, in addition to the face masks, to the nose masks. And I took effort, I made effort to go to the school, to my children's school, and I saw that they have sanitary equipment there, like hand sanitizer, water, filter, and wash. The school also provided a face mask in addition to the one parents supplied. So with that, I also visited their classrooms. In a class where you have like 18 pupils before, but now I discover you have 8 or 9. So the social distancing aspect, from what I observed yesterday, is being adhered to. And I hope it is the same all over the schools, both private and public. If this tempo is maintained and the consciousness of emphasizing to the children are maintained, I believe it's sustainable. More so, the idea of hugging, this initial excitement that my friends we have not met for the past 3 to 5 months, we are meeting now, that one is out of it completely because of this emphasis on the social distancing.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Matthias Okoje. Let's bring in now Jide Ojo with us via Skype from Lagos. Jide Ojo, tell us, well, we have the partial reopening of schools now. It took quite a while to agree on this, but schools have reopened countrywide beginning yesterday to enable the exit classes take their certificate examinations. WAEC, of course, starts on the 17th, I believe, just about 2 weeks from now. What are your thoughts on this process? Belated or almost inevitable that we had to do this?
Well, for me, it's a welcome development because nobody is sure as to when this pandemic will end. And just like the president did by reopening the economy gradually, it's desirable that we do not slow down the progress of our students based on fear of COVID-19. Luckily, the fatalities from COVID-19 is very minimal. 80 to 90% of people who contract it do survive, except for the aged with underlying ailment. So, and it is a wise decision to have the resumption in phases. So the exit classes are the ones that have come in. So there are enough empty classrooms to spread the students to make sure that the social distance aspect is not compromised. Also, the efforts of individual state government and FCT in procuring the necessary sanitary equipment like sanitizers, face masks, and making sure that there are waters in school, including the provision of infrared thermometers for checking temperatures. However, as desirable as it is, I think parents also need to play a lot of role, making sure that they are in constant touch with their students, with their wards, particularly those in boarding school, to keep abreast of how their days are going and whether after classes they maintain the social distance and all that. But a little bit of concern I have is about those schools, public and private, that do not have perimeter fence. How do you check temperature when students can come from every part of the school, entering the school? So there is no gate where, as they come, you can check their temperature. So I know it may be difficult for the government to quickly build perimeter fence, but even in terms of safety and security of schools, for some after the very ugly incidents of the abduction of over 200 students of Chibok girls, there was a safe school initiative that was launched. And I believe by now, if that project has been taken seriously, there shouldn't be any public schools without perimeter fence. However, if you go around town, you find that many of them don't still have those perimeter fence, and those who have, some of them have collapsed and they have not been rebuilt. So now it's very difficult to check the temperature of these students as they come in, because they can come in from every part of the school. There is also might be a challenge in monitoring, because they can also exit the same way. However, it's still late, it's still early in the days to applaud or to condemn government for this decision. Maybe at the end of the examination next month, we can do a review and see what are the percentages of challenges that the school authorities encounter. I know that the initial supplies have been made. How about replenishing the stock when the current one that the Ministry of Education has given them, when it is exhausted? Are the school going to be given interest to replenish the stock, or is it still going to be by the administration, by the state government that will replenish? What about private schools? I know that some of them, because they are in business to make money, they may actually not be facing that challenge, because they know if their school does not do well in terms of maintaining hygiene, they can be shut down. But I fear more for the public schools in terms of replenishing stock when the initial supplies have been exhausted. And I think the students themselves must understand primarily that the reason why they are called back to school is not to go and play, but to go and study and exit their classes so that they can move on to tertiary level. Some of them, including my own son, has done JAMB. They have their JAMB scores, but the admission has to be delayed until when they have proved that they had all the necessary entry requirements to tertiary institutions. So they must understand, and I believe that every parent who have children in exit classes will counsel them to go and do the needful, study hard, make their papers, and move on to higher classes, higher education from next year. So all of this is what I say is a collaborative action from government to families to school authorities, as well as making sure that we follow up with our students, with our children who are in school.
All right, Jideju, well, thank you there. Back to Abuja here, and let's bring in the FCT chairperson, in charge of the resumption of classes. You have already itemized some of the actions taken by your committee for the partial reopening of schools here in Abuja. Are you envisaging some hiccups along the line? The experiment started just yesterday, and I want to believe that you have a monitoring team that will monitor on a daily basis to see how what has now become new normal how students can get acclimatized to that, because it's a learning process from what we can see now. So do you have such a monitoring team? And if you do, if there are reports of reports that indicates non-compliance in some schools, especially private ones, what will be your action?
Thank you very much. First of all, I have to appreciate the last speaker. He has really talked about the situation and what is likely to be envisaged. But we in the Federal Capital Territory, frankly speaking, the materials we have on ground will take us to the end of the certificate examinations. And agreed, we have some schools that are not fenced, but we have put measures in place that all schools that are not having fence, as students come, they register them in the morning. Before registering them, the infrared thermometer, their temperature will be taken as they are going into the classrooms. And then at the front of the classroom block, we have a hand washing device where they first wash their hands, put hand sanitizer, before going into the class. At the doorstep of the classroom, their temperatures will be taken. I think that will help in checking this in schools where we don't have partial or complete fencing of the school premises.
Sorry, I'm not pausing you, but I just want to give you this. Schools where there are no fence, don't you think that there could be infiltrations, by children, infiltrations from outside the school, by other children who may not necessarily be, students? Because there's likelihood that such schools, especially that are located in a high density or high populated areas, that there could be such, infiltration into the school.
Yes, in the Federal Capital Territory, I think in the city centers, most of the schools have fence, except some in the rural areas. Even in the rural areas, some schools were fenced, especially the boarding schools. Well, we cannot, say maybe there will not be infiltrations in the school, but we have put security measures. The security men have been put to man different areas of the school compound to, curb the excesses of invaders coming into the school environment. And again, students have really been sensitized right from yesterday that they must, when they come to school, they must stay in the school for the period of hours they are going to learn. And then as they leave the school, they move home straight, especially in day schools. In boarding schools, as they come in, they are not going home again until after the termination of their exams. And we have put measures in place in the boarding schools, right in the dining hall. There will be continuous, disinfecting the surfaces of the dining tables, the chairs, even in the hostel. Constant, disinfectants of the hostel environment, and even in the laboratories, because there are a lot of surfaces, even in the classrooms. We have provided disinfectants to really, as they clean the surfaces of the environment. And we have equally told them about social distancing. In the hostel now, a hostel that accommodates like 50 students now, we have 10 in every hostel. And the beds are double bunk. So nobody is on top again. Everybody is lying on the down bunk, and then there is space in between. I've told you, in a hostel that takes 40, 45, 50, they are now 10. in order to, obey the guidelines of NCDC.
Well, thank you very much, Fatima Abdulrahman. Well, the hostel arrangement, that's very interesting. You got the double bunk beds. You used to have their juniors who will be sleeping on top of the beds. Now they have no juniors whom they will send on errands. They will have to run those errands on on their own. So Matthias is chocolate. I hope you were not wicked senior when during your time.
No, I was a nice one.
Okay, that's good. All right, let's bring in once again Mr. Amechi Osuji of Pace Setters. In terms of the type and quality of facilities that have been provided for hand washing, I've been a bit concerned because the photographs that we have seen, I must admit that I haven't undertaken any tour of the schools, but the photographs that we have been seeing have been, of course, these plastic containers with a plastic faucet, as a plastic tap. So you go there on your own, you use your hand to turn on the tap, the water comes out, you wash your hands, and then you close it back. And of course, experts warn that that's one way of spreading disease very fast. We recall, Kira and I have been on Good Morning Nigeria when we were discussing coronavirus. I don't know how many editions of coronavirus we have had. Auchi Polytechnic, and I believe one or two other institutions, designed a foot pedal operated hand washer to say for both the soap dispenser and the water dispenser, you have no need to interact with the tap head or the faucet. I don't know how much they were selling those ones or whether they have had mass production. I thought that those ones should have been fairly easy to acquire. I wasn't going to ask you, for instance, to say, look, go and get what Naseni also provided, which is a walk-through disinfectant. It just takes your temperature as you are walking through, it disinfects you, and then you walk ahead. But all these ones you are seeing, all these plastic small-sized drums that are also used as refuse collectors are what we are seeing with some small tap on the head. Why has it been so difficult to upgrade to the foot-pedaled soap and water dispenser?
The pandemic is a serious issue, and we can't treat it with levity. I don't expect an institution, especially dealing with younger children, to be having a hand-washing point where the children will have to turn on the tap, have a contact with such. That is very dangerous. Though the one we have is the one that ensures non-contact, which is what NCDC recommended, the non-contact one, which is safer. The child does not have anything to do with turning on the tap. It's not just a child, it could be a lot of them handling the same thing, and that's not good. That's not recommended when you look at it. I would say it could be the cost that will make such institution to, have the one that you have to turn on the tap. Every child comes to turn on the tap. It's not, it's risky. So it could be the cost. People may not, some schools, I can't say for private schools because we have the non-contact sanitizing point. And if people purchase such, it could be, maybe they can't afford it because the non-contact one is a little bit expensive in the hundreds of thousands, and some people may not be able to afford such. But the health of children is of paramount importance and should be placed above the costs, the expenses a school has to incur in the cost of reopening. It is safer, very safe, to have the non-contact one than to use the one where children turn on. That was before COVID was widespread at the beginning. But now NCDC recommended the non-contact one, and that's what we have. And I think that's what private schools are using. So it's advisable to use the non-contact one. The child presses the pedal, the soap comes out, dispenses the soap, there's water for him to wash. He has no business touching such. Everybody should be safety conscious, and maybe the government can step in and maybe have a subsidized one that everybody can afford. It's quite expensive. School owners have to pay a lot of money to get this
how expensive? How expensive?
They are from 100 and above, from 100,000 and above. And in some places you need like 3 points. You need 3 of them. If you have a very large school, in a boarding school you need like 4. To put in place.
And private schools, you have to pay through your nose to be there. So that's part of what is required, I believe. Yeah, Kira, but FCT, what's the experience? Are you using the upgrade or are you still?
Yes, thank you very much. much. In the Federal Capital Territory, our government's Science and Technical College in Area 3 has, fabricated such device to be used by schools presently, right now. Government Science Technical College, Area 3, close to the water board there. They have fabricated a non-contact hand-washing device. You just, when you go, it dispenses the soap and the water, you wash, you go. They have done that, and we are keen into that now. Yeah, it's our school.
Do you have them in good numbers?
Yes, the production is ongoing even now. They have produced before even the government, gave partial reopening of schools now. It's our school, yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. The few schools, like Kinsley mentioned, I just feel there are many colleges, many higher institutions, many secondary schools in Nigeria that came up with something different, something very amazing with respect to, what we can use to non-contact point where you can wash your hands, like have water dispensed and all that. But what has remained undone is to do a proper coordination of these, products and see how, they can be commercialized in a way that they can be produced in greater quantity to be able to, reach many schools in Nigeria at an affordable price. That has always been, the problem. Matthias Okoje, this issue of non-contact dispenser is germane with respect to this conversation, because many schools perhaps were not prepared for this until COVID-19 came around. And parents are usually, there's always a parents teachers association in most schools. And this might, of course, bring in parents this time around with respect to the cost of acquiring some of the materials required, to cope with the present situation. Are you expecting that, in due course, parents could be brought in to come and assist, in this direction? If yes, what are you advising your fellow parents? Because not every parent will of course, be in a financial position to add to the school fees and other things he pays for his or her children.
Yes, it is important that parents are involved. For instance, in my children's school, I'm an official of the PTA, so we are in regular contact with when I say we, the PTA officials, we're in regular contact with the school administration. Even before the commencement of school, we went to this partial reopening. We went to see that the environment was fumigated. There was an initial time, it was supposed to be 13th of July before it was suspended. The fumigation was done then. Then a week ago, another fumigation was done because of the reopening that was envisaged for yesterday. So now, the non-contact washing machine, I want to agree that it is not every school that can afford it currently, more so that before the lockdown exercise came in, the school had already, some of the schools had collected their fees for that particular term. It was the second term. So there was, based on the position of the FCT administration, that schools should not charge students or pupils during the course of this event. I'm sure some schools will have to struggle. Some schools will have to struggle. But that is not removing the fact that there are schools who already have their standard policy of whatever equipment they use. I'm sure only a few schools can afford that. But now that the pandemic has come, I want to say it is here with us now, I believe the schools will have to address the issues. Parents have to be concerned with about the safety of their children. I'm sure the PTA in the various schools, they will take the matter up. And schools should be seen to be doing what is needful for the safety of our children. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Matthias Okoje. Let's bring in again Jide Ojo. Jide, we're still talking about the facilities available for hand washing and keeping the school environment generally safe. But what I keep hearing from authorities here in Nigeria is wash your hands, use your hand sanitizer, and then wear a face mask. In some other jurisdictions, I've seen the addition of saying, look, have a disinfectant bowl as you would if you were going onto a farm. You know, you're going to a poultry or going to a farm, you have a disinfectant bowl where you step into so that your feet, your shoes are disinfected before you get on it. Usually, of course, I'm sure we all remember when there was this mad cow disease sometime in Europe. If you had to get onto a farm, you needed to do that. Some schools, as I said, in some other jurisdictions are bringing this. I'm not quite sure what the science behind that is, but we seem to see less of that. So what are your thoughts on these two issues? One, availability and quality and type of hand washing facilities that we have, plus the fact that disinfecting our shoes or footwear isn't part necessarily of the protocols.
Well, there are things that we can do better to guarantee safety and security of returning students. News report has it that many of the students are even yet to resume. I quite agree with you. In China, the one I've seen, the video I've seen is the entire body of the students or pupils are disinfected as they come to school, in addition to hand washing as well as using sanitizer. But the point is, let's start from somewhere. Even if we don't have body disinfectant or footwear disinfectant, if there is proper monitoring and inspection by the education authorities, and this is very peculiar, I believe that there should be a task force on education that will comprise of officials of the public health department, if possible, NCDC staff, then the school inspectors. All of them need to go around. Even the basics that we have assigned that all schools should have. Can we enforce compliance with those ones? If we can't get body disinfectant, so be it. But my worry is that it's too early in the days. I mean, on the first day, no media will go around to monitor compliance and all of that. So many schools will shape up. But as days go by, you may find out that the initial compliance level will drop because many schools do not even have well or borehole and no public water supply. So many of these schools, once they exhaust the one that they have had, they may not have water to even get the students and pupils to wash their hands. What effort are we making to ensure that maybe as PTA, maybe as alumni of some of these schools, if we can help government to provide those facilities, public-spirited individuals, philanthropists need to kick in. If you can donate this body disinfectant, it's a welcome idea. If you can donate a water tanker every day to schools that do not have water supply, that is also a public-spirited gesture, a kind gesture that is welcome at this point. If you can provide hand sanitizers, face masks, and all other things that will ensure the public health, the health of the students that have returned to school, this is when all efforts must be made to ensure that we do not unnecessarily expose our students and pupils to risk of this pandemic. But like I said, yes, we can do better. We should have body disinfectant. Even at the airport now, there is no body disinfectant. What I saw on my way to Lagos yesterday was just disinfectant of the luggages of the passengers. So even if the aviation authority does not consider body disinfectant as very important, we cannot enforce that in our schools. I think it's just more important to stick to the basics. Let all schools that do not have, like in Taraba now, that only school has the basics to resume. That's what I watched on news yesterday. That's a whole state. And that means a lot more needs to be done for those states. All schools, Kaduna is resuming, is on the 10th, all of those schools, those who are resuming on the 8th or on the 10th, all of them should make sure that at least the basics are provided. The water, make sure that for schools that do not have borehole or functional borehole, or whose borehole facilities are broken down, they are repaired so that there is adequate supply of water, adequate supply of hand sanitizers, adequate supply of face masks, because even the use of face masks, you need to let these students know how to use face masks. Many of them hang it on their chin, even when they have it. They need to cover their nose as their mouth. Even many adults I see wearing face masks, they put it on their mouth and leave their nose. And I mean, of what benefit is it if you can't cover your nose as well as your mouth? But that may be a discussion for another day. More important thing is restocking the supplies as they finish. And like I said, it doesn't have to be left to the government alone. Public spirited individuals, philanthropists, alumni of those schools, parent-teachers association, every one of us must kick in to support the schools to ensure proper safety and security of these students while they are writing their exams.
Rahman, you listened to Jide Ojo once more, just as he did earlier on. He raised a very pertinent issues. First of all, this time around is concerning sustenance of the supplies. So he talked about the restocking of the supplies. He also talked about engaging the private sector or well-spirited individuals to also key into this. Now, in your community, you have such plans to see how you can extend your tentacles, to organizations, social organizations, some institutions, individuals, philanthropists who might, be willing to provide some level of assistance, especially in FCT, for instance. I do have such plans because restocking is very important here. And as you also pointed out yesterday, we just started yesterday, and most schools knew that, of course, the newsmen will be nosing around to know how prepared that they are. Every school wants to reopen, no doubt about that. And then sustenance is another, issue that should be considered.
Yes, thank you very much. In the Federal Capital Territory, before this, we had earlier met with the PTA officials of public schools to really let them know that it's going to be a PPP, that is public-private partnership, that they should come in assisting the school as well. So we are not leaving parents out. We are working hand in hand with the parents. We are doing a symbiotic relationship with our Parent-Teachers Association of the Federal Capital Territory. And I don't think any school or any school administrator would like to put the risk of the students and staff. So all necessary things will have to be put in place, which we are doing in the Federal Capital Territory. The Department of Quality Assurance of the FCT is really going around to see the compliance level of every school in the Federal Capital Territory. The private schools too are not left out. I believe Mrs. Osuji knows too that the quality assurance regulates the activities of public schools and private schools in the Federal Capital Territory by making sure that they really follow the policy of the FCT Education Secretariat.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's bring in again Amechi Osuji. Under the current special dispensation that has been created for the partial reopening of schools, what are the school operating hours? That's one. Two, our focus has principally been in this conversation on students who have resumed and presumably also on their teachers and other workers. But we do know that in the school environment, there are other players. You have food vendors, you have all kinds of vendors of articles. What is being done to ensure that these other players maintain the requisite hygiene standards under the pandemic?
Everyone in the system has to also undergo the same process or processes the children go through, because somehow the teachers, the storekeeper, the security personnel and all, will have something, one thing or the other to do with the children. So they first of all undergo the checks at the gate every morning. We check them. Then the teachers, the personnel in the school maintain their 2 meters distance. They maintain social distance with these children. Whatever they are doing with the children, there has to be a distance. Before the children can come close, discuss with the teacher, but now that social distance is there. They have to be a kind of non-personal relationship with the children, even though you have to teach them, but the distance, the physical distance must be maintained. And the contamination of the environment every now and then is very important. We have cleaners who go to toilets, who go to classes every morning, ensure that everywhere is sanitized with the soil and other disinfecting agents, before the children come in. So what we are doing now is different from what we used to do. We are handling children with utmost care. We are maintaining our distance from them. Some places they don't go to. We encourage our children to ensure that whenever they come in contact with someone, for instance, whenever they come in contact with someone, they don't come so close, and they are constantly informed of this. Secondly, we limit number of people into the school environment. We don't allow visitors so much. Most of the activities are at the gate. Once you are done, you leave. And if you must come into the school office, you must come in with your face masks and other requirements that we have put in place. So we maintain such. And talking about the duration, the children are learning. They've been at home. We've used different platforms to interact with them. There's an exam coming up. On the 17th of August, our children are going to have their exams. And they need to really sit down, though they've been studying on their own. But now, the traditional method of teaching is what we have come back to now, which is what the children are already used to. So now they are back to where they left off, apart from the virtual learning that they embarked upon. So they are back to traditional method of learning. So we did not take so much, we didn't create a timetable that took so much of their time. In second term, we had extension periods for them till 4 p.m., but now we have 2, from 8 to 2 p.m., they are off school immediately. Then there are activities we restricted, like physical, PHE, sports, all those activities that can make them mix or, create, except there's a change in the system. But for now, that has been tempered down. So we do that. Then our parents, so when they come to pick their children, they don't get into the school. They just pick them from the gate and they go. So the environment is safe in all to, ensure that we have a safe time with the children.
Yeah, it's a good one. But I think part of the question, was the normal interaction in schools, apart from the normal classes. But the interactions, we say like PE, that's physical education is going to be removed entirely from the curriculum, to avoid such a person-to-person interaction among the students. Now, in a day school, like you said, parents will come and take their children home. The next day, they bring the children back. Then the cycle continues again, and unlike the boarding school where the students are all in the boarding and everybody, it's going to be a little bit of a difficulty, managing day school, right? And I want to bring in Okoji here. Okoji here. Now, a school that has, some schools have boarding and of course day. Then some are also boarding and then some are day. So in a situation like that, how can the students be managed in such a situation? Because one, if one is attends a class, from home, and at the end of the classes, the person goes home and comes back tomorrow. When he must have left school, he must have interacted, at home, not only with parents, but with also perhaps other children in the neighborhood. And the next day he returns. Then the ones that are in the boarding school, they have always been there, right? So I think they're properly monitored, because I know that we have teachers who also monitor students who are living in boarding schools. So how is this going to be managed? I mean, there is a little bit of a kind of hurdle there, in some schools that operate the two systems.
Yes, it's challenging for the day schools. It's more challenging in the sense that you cannot compare the children. You can advise them, but you don't go out with them. After school, they can decide to play, even when they have been cautioned or have been advised. It's just we continue to sensitize them, which is it's a collective responsibility now, not just of the school, but of the parents as well. The sensitization will start from you keep egging it on them, knowing that, God forbid, an infection on one, it affects the whole family. So it put more onus even on the parents than when the children come to school. So if those in the boarding house, yes, they are collectively in the school. So that one can be, the risk is minimized here. But the one coming from the day ones, as I said, they are the ones more at risk. And the boarding is on both the parents and the school to do more. They have to do more. They may decide not to play at the gate, but on their way home, they meet, they congregate, but nobody can do anything about that. Just as I said, you cannot enforce it on them if they are not inclined, if they are not inclined to obey. So, but I think for the proper sanitization, they will comply.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Okoje. Once again, but there's the issue of school hours and the interaction, particularly those of these students, an important one. It is not every child that has the benefit of a parent coming to drop him or her off school and then coming to pick him or her. Some schools used to have, private schools have buses, and those that are far away from their school, they also go by public transport. Buses are in operation in different parts of the country. We do hope that those bus operators are able to maintain the requisite social distancing and all that is taken.
Yes, I believe with the limited number of students or people coming back to school, the buses should be able to accommodate, to manage that. If the whole school were reopened, if there was a full opening now, then there would be much concern. I believe with the number of the limited number of students or people now, it can be managed. If the bus was taking like 50, and the school have many buses, I believe they will share it. The population will be drastically reduced. The number of people that enter the bus at the same time, they convey, to be drastically reduced.
I was just wondering, before we bring in Jide Ojo, I would like the educationists in our midst to also talk about this. Students have resumed now in the exit classes in order to write certificate exams. And the presumption is that they had a lead up in terms of preparation during the lockdown. And the commonest mode of instruction during the lockdown was online. I wouldn't know whether there has been an assessment of how much learning took place during this lockdown via the e-facilities, and whether there was sufficient access so that you don't have pupils or students who are not prepared for examinations just walking in there and then, flunking their exams. Do we have a sense of how much learning took place? In the private schools, the answer would appear to be perhaps a lot, but public schools probably might have been more challenged. Amechi Osuji, let's hear from you first.
Well, to measure it, you have to assess all of them at the same time. You have to assess all of them at the same time to be able to say how prepared a child is. Online it worked, but the place of the traditional classroom cannot be overemphasized. There are sometimes online you don't know who assists a child in doing stuff, in doing assignments. Somebody can assist that child. But in traditional classroom, the child is there. You make the corrections, and then the classroom ambience, the facial expressions, physical assessment that you can make of a child can help a child to pick up. And competition in a class too can assist a child. This cannot really be ascertained now. If we do an isolated test of what they did online, we may be correct, we may not be correct, except a situation where, like in Zoom classes, you ask questions and the child throws it immediately. But these days, a child could be smart to Google up an answer and give you. So the best way is to assess that child before you, in your presence, to be sure that the child understood what has been taught. But be that as it may, there's a process that works. We know that children, now they're writing an exam after spending 6 years in school. It's not just now. The pandemic should open our eyes to the fact that children should be prepared from SS1. From SS1, you start laying a foundation, because once a child is in SS2, and also when you look at the curriculum, you notice that it's bulky in SS2. You start preparing a child early enough, in case something like this happens, you see the child prepared enough to write an exam. When a child is in SS2, groundwork should be done, a lot of work. The child should be labeled a WAEC candidate already. A child cannot be in SS2 and doesn't know how to write anything, or cannot, is playing away his time. So if that system is put in place, when something like a pandemic happens, because before the pandemic, they were supposed to have written the exam around April. And is not, SS3 class is actually revision class. It's supposed to be a class where you do a lot of work using the past questions, you train them, ensure that they're adequately prepared for exam. So what we usually do is to ensure we do a lot of work for them in SS2, a lot. A child in SS2 can be able to write exam, WAEC exam. Now, coming to what happened, if a child is not grounded, one thing I can say from my perspective, from my own point of view, is that the child may not. This lockdown, some of them were at home, the television, distractions are there, the television was there, food at home, nobody to. Sometimes parents are not always at home to monitor their progress, You cannot really say, except where a child is self-determined or being propelled or motivated by the parent. So you cannot really say. But one thing I can say is that our children, the children we teach, have been prepared. In second term, they had extensive classes. They were closing by 4 because the exam was supposed to even start in like 2 weeks' time before the pandemic and before schools were closed. So we had groundwork for them. What we did during the lockdown, when the Minister of Education recommended virtual learning, was to now be, having a connection with them, giving them assignments, using different fora to ensure that they are in touch with their academics. But about their preparedness, they've been prepared. And if there's a child that maybe is not 100% ready, let's say 70% ready, I believe that every school system, and including the parent, would be doing a great work towards educating these children in these 2 weeks. Exam is beginning on the 17th of August, and we have 2 weeks to learn, 2 weeks to do a lot of work. 2 weeks is not going to be enough if you have not done groundwork, which I believe every child, especially in the private school, would have done groundwork in SS2. So coming to SS3 now, in 2 weeks' time, we hope to do to impact them, to do greater revision with them, so that at the end of 2 weeks, they will be ready for the exam in case they've relaxed or been complacent at home. So these 2 weeks is to brush over what they have done. And I believe...
Yeah, you rightly said that the 2 weeks is not necessarily, it's not really enough to do that. But I think, what I said, it's paramount, is that they are supposed to have prepared themselves before now, because they already knew that they are exam candidates, shortly before they went on vacation. That's what made a lot of sense from what she said, that if you know a candidate of examination, especially external examination, you have to prepare yourself in good time. As she said, SS2 should be prepared to write WAEC. Because when it goes to SS3, it's basically revision and, touching on some of the important aspects of, the curriculum, that has been, taught them over the years. Thank you so much. I think we'll have a break now.
Yeah, we're going to have to take a short break. I know that Fatima Abdurrahman is itching to say something, but we'll pause you and then go on this short break. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
As a strong immune system increases the chances of victims surviving COVID-19, a corruption-free society creates opportunities for citizens to thrive and prosper. Build your immunity. Stop corruption now. Report all acts of corruption to ICPC on this toll-free number 0800 22 55 4272. This message is brought to you by ICPC and NTA.
We have observed the lockdown. We have practiced the measures in order to curb the spread of the virus, but we can do better. The coronavirus spread is increasing daily, and only together can we cut down the numbers and defeat the spread of the virus. Remember, COVID-19 is not a death sentence, and a recovered patient cannot spread the disease. Do not stigmatize. Do not hesitate to report any case or if you have come in contact with anybody that has been infected with COVID-19. If you have cough and fever, please stay at home and call your state hotline. Find state numbers at www.covid19.ncdc.gov.ng. Remember, it is for your own good and for the good of every Nigerian. Let us do better and defeat the virus. Together, we can do this. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Yeah, thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. At this point, let's bring in Jide Ojo once more. Jide, you know, Mrs. Osuji spoke to the preparation of students because during the lockdown, online learning was introduced, and so many schools, imbibed that, and it worked to a reasonable extent. But we want to know, to what extent did that online learning work? Because not even every school embarked on that, or even not every school has the facility to even embark on that, especially some public schools. Now we're looking at the impact of that learning structure, that we undertook within the lockdown period. Do you think that it has impacted well on the schools that were able to, utilize, that particular structure as an e-learning, so to speak? Do you think it made any impact on them? You told us your son was an exam candidate. I wonder, I'm not sure he was part of those that were able to use that e-learning process. Mr. Sue just told us that, look, perhaps it worked in her school, and the students benefited immensely from that. Did it really work in your own understanding?
Well, I think if at all it worked, it recorded very limited success, because these students, by the time the schools were shut in March, they were not even groomed or inducted or orientated about how to use e-learning procedures or mechanisms. So they go with that during the pandemic. And truly, I have a son that did this exam. I think it's not really it's not something I would say we should adopt, because, like Ms. Osuji said, students could play pranks. They can look up the answer. They can be assisted by their parents, by their seniors, while having such e-learning. So if they perform excellently during maybe having an online examination, that may not be the true test of their knowledge, because they could have been assisted to make sure that they pass very well. So, and it's not all the schools that have these online facilities. Very, very few schools, most of them private, are the ones that actually introduced e-learning during this lockdown. And for other schools, there are states that actually decided to use radio and TV as a means of doing online online education. So people are asked to tune in to maybe NTA knowledge, or other Radio Nigeria at a particular point in time. So you have these different classes holding at different times, but not everybody also have access to that. Coupled with the fact that there are a lot of distractions at home for these students, they are not really in the mood, let me put it that way. And because of the news coming on COVID-19, every family, most families for the better part of this lockdown period were in state of gloom, because you keep seeing the rising statistics, you keep maybe somebody is infected or things like that. You are not really in the stable, you are not stable emotionally to actually learn under that kind of fearful atmosphere. So all combined, I think if at all the e-learning recorded any success, it's a very limited success. And I think going forward, it is high time the Ministry of Education integrates e-learning into the school curriculum to get students and pupils used to this e-learning method. The one that happened in the course of from March to this period is just like a gate crash e-learning system. Many of the students don't have phones with internet facilities, so they actually buy them phones or buy them laptops, or even use and ask their children to use their own phones or laptops, and that has put a lot of pressure on students. But I don't think, despite the limited success, it's something that should be discarded. I don't believe it should be discarded. Rather, we should improve on it. We should integrate it into our learning curriculum so that even when students are at home on holidays, maybe during this long-term holiday that usually happen between July to September, when the school will resume for a first session, they can be put through the rudiments of online e-learning, even if rather than going to school during there is always a holiday lesson. So these holiday lessons, we can use e-learning to groom them so that it becomes our new normal, it becomes part of the learning method that students are exposed to. Just like many schools have introduced audio visuals, even in their traditional school teaching system. When people like us were going to school, we only know of blackboard and chalk. Today, many schools are using whiteboard and with markers, and they are also using audio visuals. So you have a projector, you have lessons being taught students through PowerPoint presentations and all of that. That is the new normal, and Nigeria must not be left behind. But what has happened is not something that I would say got a pass mark from me. It can be improved upon, it should be improved upon, but it should be better coordinated. The facilities must be there. The students must be taken through the rudiments. How do they assess this? Many times, the one that I'm very familiar with, even when they schedule the exam, there are initial hiccups. The exams are postponed at will. The students are prepared. Sometimes particular subjects are postponed, and then you are given very short notice to say that you will now be having this exam in the next 2 hours or by tomorrow morning, when the students are not really very prepared for such examination. For you to do well in an examination, you need to be stable emotionally. It's not something that you are prepared for a particular subject, and then because there is hiccup, they now say, okay, that subject has been postponed, so you will take biology next. You are not prepared for biology for the next morning or thereabout. So it's something that should be improved upon. It's something that should be integrated into our educational system. But it's a good start that can seriously be improved upon for future learning.
Right. Thank you very much, Jide Ojo. I was just wondering, Kirian, the lamentation of the inadequacy of e-learning facilities, particularly in public schools, is something that presents an opportunity once again for us, I believe, to say, look, how do we fill that gap? I know that Fatima Abdurrahman was been itching to say something. I was just wondering, there is a fund known as the USPF, that's Universal Service Provision Fund. It's under the NCC, and it was created by the federal government to help, of course, extend telecommunication facilities to underserved or rural areas. Some years ago, the USPF undertook the supply of computers and some other e-learning accessories to schools throughout the Federation. I wouldn't know where they stopped and how impactful their earlier supplies had been. Now, the USPF, I believe, is still in existence, and it belongs to NCC. So it's part of the levies that they collect from the telecom service providers that is paid into that particular fund, just as you have with the lottery and what it is used for. So if we are having this huge evident gap in e-learning. And e-learning, of course, is something that has to be kicked in now on account of the pandemic so that there's no rollback of whatever little gains there might have been. Then, of course, I think it may be warranted to invite, I believe, the USPF to say, look, what can you do in this regard, particularly with regard to facilitating e-learning in public schools and where possible in private schools. But let's hear your comments, Fatima Abdurrahman. Yes.
Let me bring us back to memory lane. You know, the senior school secondary curriculum that was new came into existence in 2010, and part of the subjects that were compulsory then, that the NERDC, that is the Nigeria Educational Research and Development Council, made compulsory, are subjects like computer science, trade subject, because the essence of that curriculum was to make every Nigerian child to be self-reliant by learning one trade or the other. So we started the computer science as a compulsory subject in addition to English language, mathematics, entrepreneurial subject. But because of the challenges, power supply is one of it. Because if there is no power supply, there is no how the internet will work. So looking at some of these problems, it was stepped down. Computer science is no more compulsory. So we need to really seriously bring back the Nigeria Education Research and Development Council should bring back the computer science to make it still part of the compulsory subject, because it's all, we are talking about e-learning, and some of these students in the rural areas cannot, you know, go into the internet. They don't even know how to Google. So without the computer science subject, how will they do it? So that will be looked into. And then coming to the Nigerian Communications Commission, yes, it might interest you to know that this program is still going on. While I was a school principal, I was a principal government secondary school Kuje and the immediate past national president of ANCOPS. They supplied my school with about 200 palm tops, which we distributed to teachers. And according to Jide, he said, yes, now students, you can teach through the PowerPoint. You prepare, teachers now prepare the lesson notes using their computers, using the palm tops to teach. That is what is going in vogue now. We have to go by the best practices in Nigeria to really make sure that teaching and learning is simplified for the student. So the NCC program on supply of computers and palm tops is still ongoing. They have even reached the adult literacy. They have reached that now. They're supplying computers and this iPad to adult literacy classes in the FCT here. So they're still on. The only thing is that State Ministry of Education should key into it and liaise with the Nigerian Communications Commission.
Actually, it's the USPF.
Yes,
that's
the
Universal Service
USPF.
Provision Fund.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, well stated, Madam. We have some tools here. I think we should be able to go through them before the next question, because we have less than 5 minutes to deal with the rest of this program. From Motana Farouk, allowing students to resume schooling activities may be the best option for now, because if you don't engage people legally, other forces may recruit them illegally to perpetuate evil. Idle mind is the devil's workshop. I urge the educational managers not to play politics with it.
Festus Akimboyewa, there's no doubt that time out of school is harmful for children's cognitive and academic development. As long as time out of school can have negative effects on them, then they have to resume. But since classes can't be fully taught remotely, the government is right to reopen schools for SS3 to take their WAEC and NECO exams.
Derek Solomon, we call on the Ministry of Education to commit to provision of more palliatives by enrolling to fund logistics, such as compulsory testing of students on arrival, and thereafter more testing at regular intervals, sources of regular water supply and hand washing, soups, sanitizers, etc.
Mike Anyakwa says COVID-19 precautions must be in place accordingly. Weekly returns on COVID-19 situation in every school should be rendered and action taken if there is any negative report. No selling of food in schools.
The PTF COVID-19 will have extra work to do in monitoring schools to ensure social distancing observed across the nation. It appears that adults find it difficult to keep to rules as stipulated by relevant authorities. How much more kids with their juvenile delinquencies?
Chris Simeon tweets, says to curb the spread of the virus, students should be enlightened on how to maintain personal hygiene, and the teachers too must be ready to play their role.
Nandom Whip, will these precautionary measures be sustained, or is it going to be a regular way of fire brigade approach, but after 7 days, we then ignore the whole health concerns and checks for these children? Thank you, and God bless Nigeria.
All right, Kieran, I want us to bring in Matthias Okoje again as a PTA member. Part of the reason, I believe, for the delay in the partial reopening of schools had to do with the complaints by some schools that they were not ready, they had no facilities, no water, no this, no that. I was almost scandalous listening to those excuses being given by school managers, whether principals or even the parents of those schools or the teachers in those schools. So the question to ask would be, all along, you had no regular water supply in your school, and the pupils they will be in school, they will be playing, they will go to the washroom. How were they then maintaining their personal hygiene? And they said, oh, you needed to have a sick bay, that constructing a sick bay would be a big deal. And the question that arose was, look, if you had so many pupils under your care, and you know anything can happen in the course of a school day, including when you are having your HPE, which is a health and physical education. So a school had no sick bay in the first instance. I'm just wondering, against the background of all of this, what should the parent teachers associations do to ensure that those basic facilities that ought to be in the school environment are indeed present in the school environment, COVID-19 or no COVID-19?
The COVID-19 situation is an eye-opener. I am not sure that the system will go back the way it was the pre-COVID-19 era. So if parents are desirous for the safety of their children, and I'm sure with collaborative effort with the administration, these things will be put in place. For the schools that complain inability to purchase these items, they have succeeded in throwing themselves to the open as to what is the real purpose why they established the schools. I know some private schools have a sick bay. Some public schools, they do have. So for schools to complain that they don't have sick bay, the question is, how do you respond to emergency situation of your pupils? So such schools should be investigated. I believe such schools should be investigated to know why in the first place they did not take the health issues of their pupils as a primary concern. So it's an exposure, it has considered exposing them. And I believe the PTA will do more now under the current dispensation to ensure that all these things, they are available in schools, at least to some substantial limit.
Well, let's just hope so, because talking about public schools, that is exactly where you have those lacks, you know. I mean, when we went through those days, we had all that, you know, but they fizzled out within a period of time and never returned. Maybe the COVID-19 will help, you know, return those facilities in schools, especially public. I'm so concerned about public schools, especially at the state level. That's the point. Ladies and gentlemen.
They have suburb. Yeah, every time suburb.
Exactly.
How do they do it?
And you know, in most cases, a policy being floated by the federal government, in some cases, does not cascade down to the state, because the states are not interested in keying into such policies, especially when we have a concurrent, like education, which is on the concurrent list. So you say, I mean, it depends on any state to say whether we key into
why would it be such a big deal to provide sanitary?
And you know, even the suburb, there is competent funding. If states don't access it, there is no how they can really work with that.
Okay, let's get to a closing thought, Madam Osuji. just very briefly.
Well, the pandemic has defined a new path for us to follow. And if we are going to really survive now and thereafter, because there's going to be a new trend now, I think all stakeholders in the sector of education have to wake up, put in more effort, and ensure that the standard, talking about the physical standard and otherwise of the school system in Nigeria, is stepped up. It really needs to be stepped up. Both the private and the public schools, we have to step up. The world is going digital. We are looking forward to a period where we will, go online fully, be digitalized and move our school forward. And I believe that if all hands should be on deck,
all right,
that can be achieved.
All right, Amechi Osuji, we appreciate that. And at this point, we are closing this edition of the program. I believe that you have done justice to the conversation, and as such, we would like to appreciate you. Amechi Osuji is the principal, Pesetas College, Kuzape here in Abuja. Thank you for coming. And of course, the chairperson of FCT Schools Reopening Committee, Fatima Abdurrahman. It's been wonderful. Abdurrahman. It's been wonderful talking to you this morning. Thank you. And of course, Matthias Okujie, who is a parent, it's also a pleasure talking to you. Thank you indeed for sharing your time and thoughts with us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
Our regular man there, Jido Ojo, via Skype from Lagos. As always, we appreciate your insights into this conversation. Thank you so much for coming.
All right, and that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. We thank you for sending in your tweets and for tuning in. We're back tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Remember, take personal responsibility. Stay safe, protect others, and be well. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kirian Umayo. Have a great day.